Perfect. So this break was much needed from everybody. Moving along with session number two. Session number two is about the risks and pressures. And our first presenter is Mrs. Paraskevi Bozineki-Vidoni. She's an architect at the Department of Traditional Settlements. Her presentation is about the development of traditional settlements and the example of IA. Mrs. Bozineki-Vidoni, hi, welcome.
Γεια σας, καλημέρα. Λυπάμαι που δεν είμαι εκεί. Good morning. Λυπάμαι που δεν είμαι στη Σαντορίνη. Traditional settlements are residential complexes, creation mainly of the last few centuries of our history, and an integral part of our cultural heritage. They are vessels of life, according to the great architect Aris Konstantinidis. They are living monuments and symbols of the history of our culture. Our architectural heritage is a source of knowledge and inspiration. Traditional settlements are often very important touristic resources, and this is very often the big problem for the protection of the traditional settlements. Ia is mentioned by many travelers long before 1650 during the years of Frankish rule in Greece and the Aegean Sea in particular. Ia was one of the 5 castle towns called Castelia of Santorini. Ia flourished towards the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. Its prosperity was based on the Iathic merchant marine fleet and the booming transit trade effected in the Eastern Mediterranean, particularly between Russia and Alexandria. Ia has been traditionally considered an important ship owner's town. In 1890, for example, when total population did not exceed 2,500 people, there were 130 ships belonging to Ia natives and a small shipbuilding yard functioned in the Bay of Armenia. During this same period, there were 13 different parishes in Ia, 1 bank, a custom house, various craft units, and also an important agricultural production from his hinterland. The eventual predominance of steamboats over sail ships and the concentration of shipping capital in Piraeus are the origin of the decline of Ia and the gradual desertion of the island. 1,348 people were living in 1940 in Ia. There were only 306 in 1977. The Goulas in Ia, and now the Goulas for the tourists to see the sunset. And Ia, before the earthquake, the Castelli and the Goulas in Ia before the earthquakes. Many factors, natural and social, are responsible for this decline. In 1928 and in 1956 earthquakes, the severe winter of 1942 was all responsible for the decline in Ia. Agriculture is abandoned, and it should be remarked that the jurisdiction of the community of Ia includes 360 acres of Arab land As families left, their houses were closed down one after another. Today, IA approximately has 830 inhabitants. The specific to Santorini excavation houses dominate the architecture of the area. They are cave-like habitation excavated into the soft earth with ground-level facades and benefiting from the natural gradation of Santorini. Sometimes they have an additional stone-built part constructed like an extension of the excavate section. Public and private spaces interprenate and at times coincide. The complexity of the built environment of Santorini has led to the establishment of horizontal property, a remarkable legal device successfully dealing with cases where the roof of one house is the courtyard of the house above it. At any rate, the structure and the arrangement of a house are largely determined by a local common law. Here today from the Amoudis port. The Greek National Tourism Organization embarked upon a pilot program for the protection and promotion of traditional settlements in 1976. The program included the promotion and restoration of the most representative example of architecture across Greece. The GNTO program in IA consists in a wide range of interventions from 1976 to 1993. Some 60 traditional houses were restored, repaired, preserved, and arranged into guest houses with total capacity 200 beds. These houses form small groups dispersed in Nia, Perivolas, and Amoudi. They were selected with a view to Caldera. Actually, a combination of criteria prevailed in the selection of these buildings, pertaining to the specific character of each individual house and its interaction with the immediate environment as well. The GNTO project for IA has received international recognition, having won to the 1979 European Nostra Award and the 1984 Sofia Architectural Biennale Prize. The GNTO initiative set an example to private initiative. This, little by little, the ruins left by history and earthquakes in Nia were repaired and restored, an age-old pattern of alternation between destruction and expansion controlled by the moods of the volcano, explosion and sleep was repeated once more. Today, the revitalization of the old traditional settlement is an accomplished fact. Thus, IA is again, but now is again IA endangered, this time not by desertion, but by growth. IA is mentioned like a traditional settlement with a special law. The measure that would allow for development to go ahead while protecting and preserving the nature of traditional settlements could be summed up as follows. establishing tourist quantity and quality, tourist capacity indexes on a local and regional level with appropriate quality and quantity specification. Utilizing and developing other alternative economic activities as well as tourism. Researching and disseminating new forms of tourism of a sustainable nature as opposite to aggressive tourist development. Making records of monumental wealth. Promoting comprehensive schemes from the protection and promotion of our cultural heritage, included in land planning and regulatory studies, which will establish protected zones as well as the uses that can be made of them in order to preserve the authenticity of buildings and complexes. The relationship between the settlement and the natural environment, free spaces, and the functions acquired with the passage of time. Any new operation and infrastructure network must be included and adapted to the settlements. Organization and special training addressed to all professions connected to intervention made in traditional settlements. How and where do we build? By what aesthetic values? How do we establish the role of the architect? Most of all, however, it is imperative to promote awarenesses, to inform and to educate the public from a school age about the fundamental values of cultural heritage and the need to preserve it in order to mobilize and involve local residents in the important matters of protection and utilization of cultural heritage. And for the end, a poet from Odysseus Elitis, to return to the Pamis Island with a forgotten troparion that brings the bells to life, giving domes of matins to your most far-off memories. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Paraskevi-Bozinek-Vidoni. The presentation was very nice. Thank you for sharing these amazing photos with us and taking us to a trip down memory lane. Next, I would like to welcome Mrs. Maya Evstathiou, archaeologist of the Ephraim of Antiquities and Cyclades. Mrs. Evstathiou, can you hear us?